Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Simple Watch Reviews, where I review simple watches in a straightforward way. Today a watch from a brand I had never heard of before, but with which I've been pleasantly surprised. Here's my review of the Makydo Deep Black 38. So this is, to give it its full name, the Makydo Deep Black 38 Lite. Makydo, the brand, reached out to me a little while ago and offered to send me a watch. I'll be honest, I had not heard of them before, but when I took a look at their range, I was quite interested. They make a bunch of different integrated bracelet style watches, but it was this diver style one with an internal rotating bezel that really stood out to me. It definitely looks different from most of the integrated bracelet watches out there. I'll leave a link in the description to the video to their website so you can check out both this watch and their full range. That link will be an affiliate link, which means I earn a small commission if you choose to buy a watch. All of the commission I earn goes towards buying more watches for me to review on the channel. Most of their watches come in both a 38 or 42mm size, and many of them come with bracelets rather than the silicone strap that I've got. Clearly the Deep Black has a PVD coating on it, but most of their watches are a plain stainless steel, and they have a variety of dial colours too. The list price on this one is £250, which I think is about $340 US. Currently it's discounted down to $225, and I also have a 10% off discount code that you can use, Ollie10. Most of their watches with bracelets retail for around £300, and they come with a silicone strap as well as the bracelet. As always with this video, I will give you the bad points of the watch as well as the good points, and you will be the first people to see it. Brands don't get to see my reviews until they get publicly posted on YouTube. Given that this brand is new to me, I suspect it's probably new to many of you as well, so let me give you some first impressions before I get into the detail of the watch. Overall, I'm very impressed. It's a very solidly built watch and the design is different enough to make it interesting. So overall, my impressions are good. There are three negatives I'll cover as we go through the review though. One of those is an observation, something that I was slightly surprised about with the watch. One is a design choice that Makydo have made that I don't necessarily agree with, and the third is just something the watch doesn't do terribly well. As usual, the video is filmed in 4K and I'll include indoor footage, outdoor footage and macro footage so you can really get a good look at the watch and you don't just have to take my word for things. And hopefully you can tell from the footage I posted already, this is a really handsome looking watch with some nice detailing. Before I show you more of the watch though, let me just talk about the packaging. So this watch came in an absolutely huge box. It's nicely branded with a Makydo logo, which I have to say is a pretty decent logo, certainly better than the logos on many of the watches I've reviewed on the channel. Both the outer box and the inner box have that branding, and you also get a nice card with a QR code to scan to get more information. Makydo also sent me one of their travel cases, which is really nicely done. It's a very solid feeling little case, and I think will be great for taking an additional watch away with me when I go on holiday. At first I wasn't quite sure how to get the watch in and out of it, but as you can see the middle section unfastens from the two sides. This case goes for £30. They sent me the black leather version, but they also do a kind of canvas style one. Okay, back to the watch. So design wise, this feels to me like a bit of a mashup between the Patek Philippe Nautilus and the IWC Aquatimer. So it's got a similar dial and a similar internal bezel to the IWC and the same slightly squared broad outer bezel as the Patek. I think the combination of those two styles works really well. It makes for a distinctive looking watch that's got its own identity, but that also references the classics. As you'd expect, the watch is 316L stainless steel underneath that PVD coating. As you can see, it's got two hexagonal crowns, one at the 3 o'clock position and one at 9. The one at 3 is a push-pull crown for winding the movement and setting the time. The one at 9 allows you to move the internal bezel. And that bezel is bidirectional and non-ratcheting, which is unusual for outer bezels on dive watches, but I think is reasonably common for internal bezels because of the fact that there's no danger of them getting knocked. The crystal is a slightly raised flat sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, and the movement inside is the faithful Seiko NH35. The watch has also got a display case back mineral crystal this time in case you want to have a look at that Seiko NH35, and the silicone strap has a signed deployment clasp. Dimension wise, as you probably guessed from the name of the watch, Makydo lists this as 38mm. I think that's broadly accurate, but it doesn't really reflect the case design. So if I measure this across the middle from 3 to 9, I make it 37.5mm. But if I measure it diagonally from 2 to 8, it's about 40mm. Either way, it wears pretty well, even on a smaller wrist like mine. I'll show you that later on in the video. Lug to lug is a little bit difficult to measure, but about 47mm. The strap, as you can see, kind of has centre links where it meets the case. If you include those in the length of the watch, it's about 51mm. Thickness is 12.8mm, including the raised sapphire crystal, so it is reasonably thick. And it's also, I have to say, reasonably heavy. I was surprised by how heavy this watch is. So the weight with that silicone strap on is 112 grams, which I think is quite a lot for a watch without a metal bracelet. By comparison, the C-Stern 62 mass that I've got, which is also 38mm in diameter and has a rubber strap, weighs just 82 grams. So this is definitely something that surprised me about the Makydo, but I think it's down to the design of the case. It's definitely a bit chunkier than a watch with standard lugs. The water resistance, as you'll have seen on the dial, is 150 metres, so more than enough for regular swimming. Finish-wise, I think Makydo have done a really good job with the case. PVD-coated watches are often very plain, but this one has got a lot going on. There's vertical brushing on the top of the bezel, the top of the case, and on the sides of the case, plus on those centre links where the silicone strap joins the case. But then you've got a well-executed polish on the side of the bezel and a polished chamfered edge running between the tops of the lugs and the side of the case. It adds up to a watch that's a lot more visually pleasing than a lot of PVD coated watches. So the first slight negative I had was the weight of the watch. The second one is to do with the crowns, and this is a design choice that Makydo have made that I'm not too sure about. There's two parts to it really. So firstly, the fact that the crowns are hexagonal means they're slightly uncomfortable to use. That's probably less of a problem for the crown at 3 o'clock, which is used to set the hands, because you're not going to be using that very often. But I did find that the internal bezel was slightly difficult to manipulate because of the hexagonal crown at 9. The other thing I'm not sure about with the crowns is the placement of them. When I first looked at the watch, I found the symmetry quite pleasing. But over time, I've come to think that maybe it would look better if both of them were on the same side. Maybe one at 2 and one at 4. I've actually found on a few occasions when I've gone to put the watch on, I've put it on upside down because of that symmetry. Okay, let's move on to the dial, which really is very pleasing indeed. Makydo say it's supposed to look like the sand on the ocean floor, and it really does capture that look. It manages to be subtle but also eye-catching, so if you get it in the right light, it really sparkles. You've got a printed minute track around the outside of the watch, and then applied stick indices with a high polish around them. There's singles for most of the hours with a double at 12. The date window at 3 is colour matched to the dial and has a subtle matte black frame around it. And then you've got an applied polished Makydo logo beneath the 12 with the brand name printed below that. Then to balance things out, a couple of lines of text above the 6. The hands are simple stick hands, very well polished and nicely proportioned. They really do stand out fantastically well against that dial. This is a very legible watch indeed. Unfortunately, it's not quite so legible at night, and that's my third slight negative about the watch. The Lume is BGW9, but it's really not that fantastic, and the dial definitely fades faster than the hands. This watch, I'm afraid, didn't manage to pass my overnight test. I charged it up before bedtime, but I couldn't tell the time at 5 o'clock the next morning. Around that dial, you've got the inner rotating bezel. It's white with black printing for the first 15 minutes and then black with white printing for the remainder. It's a nice, simple design and works well with the rest of the watch. Over the top of all of that, you've got a nice raised flat sapphire crystal. It's got a decent amount of anti-reflective coating and is nice and clear. The silicone strap is very, very flexible and soft. It does pick up lint a little bit, but it's not too bad. It's got 2 keepers, neither of which are fixed. And I have to say they do slide about a bit when the watch is not on the wrist. I found that that can be a problem when I go to put the watch on, because one of them tends to slide under where the deployment clasp is going to close. That clasp is decent though. It has the same PVD coating as the head of the watch and is signed with the Makydo logo. It's easy enough to use, but the fact that I have a skinny wrist means that it sits slightly off centre for me, which is not as comfortable as it could be. Anyway, here's what the watch looks like on my 6¼ inch wrist. I'm going to give you shots from 3 different angles so you can really get a good feel for how the watch looks. First is the standard wrist roll. Second is a shot from further away. And then finally a point of view shot, which shows you what the watch actually looks like to you on your wrist. I'm going to try and include these 3 views in all of my videos going forward. So overall, I've been very pleasantly surprised by this Makydo. As I say, I hadn't heard of the brand before, so I didn't expect too much, but it's a very solidly built and well finished watch. And I also think the design is good. It manages to capture the feel of some classic watches without being a direct homage to anything. And whilst it's not as affordable as some of the watches I've reviewed on the channel, I do think the combination of good design, solid build, very good finishing and good specifications means it represents really quite good value for money. It's certainly noticeably cheaper than similarly spec'd offerings from Seiko or even other micro brands. So as I said at the start, I've been very pleasantly surprised by this Makydo. It's not perfect, but it is very nicely finished and enjoyably different. It's not quite like any other watch I own. Do let me know what you think in the comments, give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and also consider subscribing for more simple watch reviews.